Hi, y'all. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I wanted to go through a few things about today's lesson with you in this video. So I'm going to use Miss Murphy's lesson again, but it should be the same for all of your algebra teachers. So I'm actually going to go straight to the cool down, just so you can see what you're going to be asked to do at the end of the lesson today. What you're doing is you're picking an initial value for your exponential function. I think all of you have told me that you're modeling COVID, so I've selected the option for COVID. So we're just looking at those cases. So you have 4 different numbers to choose from as your initial value. And what I want to emphasize, because I think this can be a little bit confusing, is none of these are the wrong answer, which is kind of crazy because we're kind of used to there being a wrong answer in math. Actually, none of these are wrong. They're all legitimate initial values that mathematicians are using to model the spread of COVID. What your teacher is looking for here is how you justify your reasoning for why you picked the number you did. So I'm going to walk you through and model for you how I might do this if I were a student in an algebra class. So here I see the list of the possible initial values I could choose. Quick review of an initial value. You guys have seen a ton of equations, exponential equations that look like this. The constant that's in front is our initial value. Sometimes we called it A in class. And this is an example where our initial value is 1,000. So you could think of it like a bank account where you're depositing $1,000. It's the starting amount, the number that you begin with. So if I'm depositing $1,000, my initial value is 1,000. Then we don't have to think about this today, but just as a quick review, this number inside the parentheses we called the rate. Sometimes it was a growth rate, sometimes it was a decay rate. In this case, I can easily tell it's a growth rate because it's greater than 1.03. So if I'm thinking of this as money, I can think, okay, I'm depositing $1,000 and then it's growing at a rate of 3% over some period of time. Well, okay. So for today, don't worry about the growth rate. We're just thinking about what initial value would make sense in the case of COVID. In other words, how many cases of COVID are we starting with? So the first thing I want to point out is that your teacher is specifically asking you for the number of cases on March 20th, 2020. So that's going to be important that we're trying to reason and think about the number of cases on March 20th. Today is, when you're watching this, it will be March 25th. So we're not even thinking about the number of current cases, we're thinking about the number of cases that occurred 5 days ago. So how do we figure that out? So since I know there's no such thing as a wrong answer, I'm just going to kind of pick one. I'm going to explore the resource and then see if I agree with it. And if I agree with it, then I'm just going to write out my sentence justifying why I think that makes sense as an initial value. Let's see. I am going to choose, another thing. You also want to think about your audience here. So I'm forgetting, I think it was a pretty equal split between those of you who wanted to present to someone who's really worried about the virus and you wanted to help calm them down versus those of you who wanted to present to someone who is maybe not worried enough. They're too calm and you want to get them to see how serious the situation is. For me, just for the model, I'm going to say that I'm presenting to someone who I think that they're too anxious, I think they're too freaked out, and I want to present them with a model that I think will be calming to them. So if I'm trying to calm someone down and make them think the virus is not as severe, then I'm going to pick the smallest number, right? The smallest number of confirmed cases. So the smallest number I currently see is 12,573 confirmed cases. That's still not a small number at all, but that's the current lowest estimate of confirmed COVID cases. It says the resource for that is the World Health Organization. That's a legitimate resource. So I'm going to go back to my algebra teacher's lesson and I'm going to scroll down to the place where they have the resources listed. And I'm going to go to the World Health Organization interactive map. So it's going to be this one, I believe. Okay. Okay. So I'm waiting for that to load. Is this the World Health Organization? No. Which one is the World Health Organization? Maybe this one? No, this one's saying 44,183. And I'm already running into one of the same issues that you guys will probably run into as well, which is digging through all of these infographics and all of these articles to actually try to find a number that makes sense. So you'll find yourself doing this as well as you dig through some cases. How about this one? Okay, so according to this data, I can see on March 20th, there were about 14,000 cases confirmed in the United States. Okay, so let me think for a second about how I could justify that. See if the original source could be any help. Okay, so it says, we relied on data from the World Health Organization. Since March 19th, our data is sourced from the European Center for Disease Prevention. We explain the reasons for this change in the section below. Interesting. So at first, this resource was relying on the World Health Organization, and then they started relying on a different source, which is just the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control. See if I click here, total confirmed cases, you'll probably find yourself doing a lot of the same thing, just clicking around to different resources. Let's ignore that for now. Blah, 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 blah. Interesting. In published World Health Organization reports were several inconsistencies in the total number of confirmed cases. These discrepancies are detailed below. So what I'm seeing is when I'm reading kind of the fine print, it seems like that number that was reported on that date actually might not even be the most accurate number. And they're admitting that on the website. Okay, well, that's probably not a good resource to use. So let's go to the highest number, just do something different. And it says 50,000 cases. Actually, for the sake of time in this video, I'm going to stick with the 14,250 estimate, and I'm going to quickly model for you. Sorry, this light's very bright right now. Quickly model for you how I would justify that. So what your teacher is going to be looking for here is that you use evidence, so you cite the source of where you got the data from, and then also that you explain why it makes sense given the audience that you're going to be trying to persuade. So let's see. I picked the initial value, 14,250, because according to the World Health Organization, so I'm citing my data, citing my source. According to the World Health Organization, on March 20th, there were let's see, how many cases? Going back to that, on March 20th, there are 14,250 confirmed cases of COVID in the United States. There were 14,250, okay, perfect match, cases of COVID in the United States. Also, I am presenting to the audience of someone who is very stressed about the virus. Therefore, I chose the smaller number in order to create a model let's see, how can I put this? In order to create a model that is less extreme. Okay, so I'm picking a smaller number because I'm trying to convince someone that it's actually not that serious, so I'm going to want to pick one of these smaller numbers. So 2 things to remember: cite your source, and then make sure you talk about why it makes sense for the audience that you're trying to persuade. Okay, also, final plug, please either ask me or ask one of your teachers to contact you at some point today. We're getting to the harder parts of the project, so I want to make sure that you have your questions answered. And if you click this option, you don't have to worry about coming onto a Google Hangout. Me or one of your other algebra teachers will just call you directly. Okay, thank you for your attention. Hopefully this video was helpful and you can get right into your algebra lesson for today. Yeah, have a wonderful day. Thank you all. Bye.